Hello and welcome to the 206. My name is Mark, coming to you from Seattle as always, Seattle, Washington, and this is the Changing Directions interview series. Now, joining me today is Kelsi Umeko, a filmmaker who is currently working on a short film right here in Seattle called I Am American, which is why we're here today, and I think we're ready, so let's just get right to it. Kelsi, welcome to the 206.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, now you're also from the 206, so it kind of feels weird welcoming you, but at the same time, welcome to the interview series here. Now, first off, congratulations on the progress you've been making on this short film so far. I've been seeing a lot of local press providing coverage, so thank you for taking the time to discuss the project here with me as well.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on your show to be able to talk about I Am American. And I'm actually from the 425.
Oh, really? Okay, nice. Okay.
But born and raised in Seattle, Washington. Yeah.
Excellent. So we're covering a few of the area codes here. That's awesome. Now let's start off with the what and the why of this film. So give me a brief synopsis of why it's such an important project for you to take on.
Yeah, I think the what and the why kind of go together. Why it is so important. My film is about, at the heart of it is an immigrant's journey chasing after the American dream. So we start in 1915 with a Japanese picture bride immigrating from Japan to America, and
Wow.
more specifically, Seattle,
Sure.
the 206. And she's meeting her husband for the very first time. He himself is also a Japanese immigrant. And then we jump through decades of their life and them building their life here in America. So we get to see them. They have a curry and rice restaurant
Oh,
that serves a diverse community. So we get to see their restaurant grow and find success. We get to see them have Japanese American children that are citizens of the United States. And we really get to just see how integrated this family is in their community around them. And then the film actually comes to an end around 1942. So this is 1941, the bombing of Pearl Harbor happens. And then in 1942, the Executive Order 9066 is signed, which forces them and also 120,000 other Nikkei families living on the West Coast into concentration camps. So that's the what, the why I'm making it. This is my own family story. So much of this screenplay was written from my own family's history and lived experience. This would have been my grandparents and my great grandparents that actually lived through this part of American history. And why it's so urgent to tell today is it parallels a lot of how immigrants are treated still in America today.
wow.
And also the survivors of this, like my great uncles, they're in their 90s, and I feel like it's been really special to be able to honor their lived experience, but also have their voices to be able to just inject what they went through so that the film is grounded in truth, authenticity, their real lived experiences. So two of my great uncles are actually our historical advisors on the film to just make sure that this story accurately represents what actually happened. And it's just been a great honor to be able to preserve this piece of history and pass it on to the next generation.
Oh, that's incredible. It sounds like there's just so much that you're packing into this short film. It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
how do you fit all that in there? Now, thinking about that, you've been working on this project for a while, it seems, developing the screenplay well before filming ever even began. So, from a creative filmmaking perspective, what has that process been like for you?
Actually, it will shock you, but I actually wrote the screenplay in February of this year, so of
Oh, really?
2026.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, but it has been, I would say like 15 years in the making because ever since I started in this industry, I have always wanted to tell this story, but have been way too intimidated to take on a period piece, my family's own lived experience, just the historical accuracy and all that that entails. But really, just being in the industry full time and working in the industry, I finally found myself in this place where I felt very confident to be able to tell this story and to do it well. So it's been, yes, I wrote the screenplay in February, but it's been over a decade in the making. Yeah, so it started actually through I literally had just prayed the night before, like, God, if there's a story you want me to tell, will you just, give it to me again?
Wow.
'Cause this kind of similar thing happened with our last feature film, Second Chance.
Sure.
And the very next day, a close family friend of ours calls me up out of the blue and is like, "Hey, I know the next film you should make." And this is my a family friend. I call her my Aunt Teresa. She's a dentist. She's not even in the industry, but she was like, "I know what film you need to make next. This film." And she was my first investor. I used her mom is Suma Yagi, who is almost 100 years old,
Oh
still
my
alive
God.
today, and a survivor of the incarceration camp. So she wrote a book of poems from just the trauma that she held on to as a child being incarcerated. She held on to that for many years and as an adult processed through that trauma by writing poetry. And so I took those poems and wrote my first iteration of screenplay inspired by the poems.
Wow.
And then from there, just like interwove my own family's lived experience, went through the Densho archives, historical archives, and just really wanted to tell like a very broad but intimate story for these Nikkei families that experience this. So we went into production. Our first day was May 31st.
Oh
And
wow.
then we wrapped June 29th.
Okay.
And then we're trying to submit to Sundance by August 31st. So it's been just like
Wow.
this sprint marathon trying to get this film made, done, completed, and off into the world.
Wow, it's incredible how things just kind of one thing after another once the ball gets rolling like that. So now,
Yeah.
from what you mentioned, you've gone to great lengths to provide levels of authenticity. You use that word to the film, from props to cast members to locations. What has it been like being able to be so, I guess you could say, like hyper local with every aspect of that process?
Yeah, filming in Seattle was, to be honest, it was just the perfect location. Not only am I born and raised in the greater Seattle area, so I feel very comfortable, but our cast and crew, there's so much talent in this area, and it was just phenomenal to work with industry professionals that I've worked with, like on the acting side, top level, like HBO shows,
Oh wow.
Microsoft. Jobs like that. I've worked with them. So it was just awesome to pull everyone together and to really make this project and to keep it here in Seattle. Not only that, but this specific story, this lived experience happened right here in Seattle. So my grandparents had a farm in Auburn, Washington.
Oh
So
wow.
you can just imagine that there's just so many families from the Seattle area that were incarcerated,
Sure.
Nikkei families, I should say.
Yeah.
And so it was just, it was so surreal and sobering to be on set and know that the experience that we were recreating in the story actually happened on the ground in the buildings that we were filming at. It was very sobering.
Wow, that's incredible. Just looking around, like, understanding the texture of the walls and the everything about it. Now, speaking
Yeah.
of that, is there a specific location that you always targeted as the one that you wanted to have in the film? And has there been one that has stood out to you so far as something special you might not have expected?
All of the locations are honestly, our production was just massive. We had moving steamships that were active, we had moving trains, and then we filmed at so many different historical museums that are preserved into the time period that we were recreating. I think I've always wanted to film at the Panama Hotel, but that was something that was kind of like, oh, that would be amazing, but how do I do that? Like, it
Sure.
seems like so far out of reach. But then I went to the Panama Hotel. I met Jan Johnson, who is the current owner, and she just loved Mr. and Mrs. Hori Takashi. So she jumped in and was so supportive of us filming at her hotel. The history of the Panama Hotel is so significant to this story. So, the owner at the time was Mr. Hori, he was Japanese American in his mid 20s. And when the Nikkei families in the area were getting incarcerated, he opened the doors to his hotel and let people store their valuables in his hotel.
Oh my
So
gosh.
when the executive order 9066 was signed, some families only had a week to pack up their entire life's
Wow.
belongings. Some owned, businesses and homes and cars and farms and all these things, and they had one suitcase that they could take to
Hmm.
camp, and they didn't know how long they were going to be incarcerated for.
Right.
Turns out 4 years. So he opened up his hotel doors, and what was very sobering is in the basement, if you go into the tea room, like I recommend if you haven't been to the Panama Hotel, go to the Panama Hotel, but in
Wow.
the tea room there's a glass floor and you can look through the glass floor and you can see into the basement and you can see people's left behind valuables and belongings from 1942.
Really?
Some people never came back for their belongings.
Wow.
Seattle was kind of an area at the time that after the war was over, they didn't want the Japanese and Japanese Americans to return back to.
Right.
So it was kind of like pushed them
Hmm.
out. So a lot of people, including my own family, ended up settling in Eastern Oregon.
Hmm.
But we got to bring, it was the Takawa family. They let us use a piece of luggage that their dad took to concentration camp. So
Wow.
we used that as our hero luggage. We got to film in the basement with all of those left behind belongings from 1942 and add our props into that space. And it was like,
Oh my
when we're
gosh.
editing that scene, it's hard not to get choked up
Right.
just to see all the loss. It's like a full basement of a hotel full of people's things that they had to leave behind.
I
So.
I can just imagine the amount of stories you could tell just from the items that are in that basement. That's unbelievable to know that that's there.
Yeah, and it's like time stamped to
Hmm.
1942. So if you see any articles, anything, it's like all 1942. It's very like sobering. But
Wow.
yeah, along with the Panama Hotel, we filmed at Onibaba, which is
Hmm.
right in the Japantown district.
Sure.
And that building has been there, has always been a restaurant in Japantown. So we got to film there.
Wow.
And then we filmed at the Bothell Historical Museum, Virginia 5 Steamship, the Northwest Railway Museum. We filmed at a farm in Snohomish.
Hmm.
Um, I'm blanking on the farm name. I think it's called the Herd Acre Farms.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and then my aunt Tina and Uncle Craig's Fuji residence at their house. So we filmed
Wow.
all around the greater Seattle area to tell this story, and each location was actually directly tied to the Nikkei families that lived there.
Just it's blowing my mind just how in depth that you've been able to go from, like my question was about every aspect of the filmmaking process, and you've really gone all in on that. Now, one thing that I wanted to touch back on that you had mentioned before was your great uncles uh,
Mm.
being part of the story and contributing to that story. So tell me a little bit more about how they were involved, with that process of getting their stories told within that.
Yeah, so my great uncle Junior Yasuda, he's my mom on my mom's side of the family. Their family, like on my mom's side of the family, were incarcerated at Heart Mountain,
Uh,
Wyoming concentration camp. And I called him to just learn more about what the immigration process looked like for my great grandmother and my great grandfather. My great grandmother on that side was a picture bride.
hmm.
So in the early 1900s, the government had basically closed off immigration to Japan. So you have all of
Wow.
these Japanese immigrant men who have immigrated to America in our family the late 1800s and were working, building a life here, and then immigration gets closed off. So how do these men start families and being here in America? So there was a gentleman's agreement that if that you could send for your family, your wife and children from Japan to join you in America. So that's what started kind of this picture bride movement where women in Japan, there would be like an intermediary man or matchmaker, and the women in Japan would get married to a photo of their Japanese husband waiting for them in America.
Wow.
They would make it official in Japan, and then they would start their journey from Japan to America to meet their husband for the very first time. So a lot of that story I was gathering from my Uncle Junior, and then from my Uncle Ben Tsuchida. He has been just, I sent my screenplay to him. He interjected a lot of details that he remembers from just childhood growing up in Auburn, Washington as a Japanese American kid.
Hmm.
He was born in Auburn, Washington.
Wow.
And then his experience being incarcerated. He was 10 years old when he was incarcerated, 14 years when he got out. So he added in so many details, including we really do play with the Pledge of Allegiance. So the first time you see the Pledge of Allegiance is in our 1930s classroom scene. And then we actually end our film in 1942, the kids all doing the Pledge of Allegiance behind barbed wire
Oh my God.
in concentration camps. So he was like, "Oh, we never said under God, in the Pledge of Allegiance because under God wasn't in there until like the 1950s,
Oh,
I believe."
okay.
And then he also told me about the Bellamy Salute, which I would have never known. So I think we might be the first film to actually capture the Bellamy Salute
Wow.
in a film, which is pretty incredible. I've never
Right.
seen it before. And then he just like littlest details, like he talked about how when they were in their concentration camps, they were held in like these barracks and they had these wooden slats that didn't go all the way up to the wall to separate the families. So he
Mhm.
told me how when he was a kid, he would climb those and peek over the edge to look at the neighboring family, and his mom would yell at him. So I actually wrote into the story, we get to see three generations of this Tsuchida family. So we see the first generation, second generation being Japanese American, and then we get to see those Japanese American kids grow up. And my character is the grown-up version that ends up marrying her Caucasian childhood sweetheart. So
Okay.
I wrote in a biracial marriage, and then we have a son who's about 5 years old, who's mixed Japanese and Caucasian. So I named him after my great uncle Ben in the
Oh, cool.
story. So his name's Benjamin. And I
Yeah.
have him climbing those wooden slats things and me, yeah, pulling him down. So yeah, it was very, those are details that you wouldn't get unless you lived through the experience. You can only read so much in uh text or even seeing in archival photos. You can only learn so much about the experience, but to have like firsthand lived experience voices in my
Right.
great uncles that were able to just share so much. It really helped me as a director and a writer to be able to really do this story justice.
Hmm. Wow, that's amazing. Now, just there's so much going on there, like we are talking about. I want to take kind of those topics and kind of shift it to a big picture perspective. And I mean, on like a national scale. This
Hmm.
isn't really a story that's been touched on nearly as much as it should, if at all. You've mentioned a couple things where it's like, I don't think I've ever seen that, like the Bellamy Salute. And I know as a kid, the history I was taught was filled with racial stereotypes, to go along with the likes of like Captain America and G.I. Joe and all those classic American hero type figures, right? And,
Hmm.
I mean, hopefully you can use the film as a way to keep these real stories alive so people can understand what it was really like during that time period.
Yeah. Yeah, I on a national scale, I think that I mean, America is a country full of immigrants and people risking everything to leave behind their home country, their native language, their family, their friends, their culture, their belonging, in hopes of chasing after the American dream, which is ultimately kind of a promise of like a better life for you and your future generations. And so I think on a grand scale, I hope that this film, because at its heart is an immigrant's journey chasing after the American dream. So I really hope on a grand scale that people from across the nation are able to see this hero family, but also see their own family story in this story. And like for me, I'm fourth generation Japanese American. So that journey began, as I said, in the late 1800s.
Right.
And there's probably a lot of people where that's more recent for them. they might even be the first generation immigrant. So I just hope that they feel seen by this story. I
Right.
hope that we can remember what that looks like for an immigrant's journey coming to a new country, risking everything to try and make it here in America. And one really cool thing about this is it's really inspired people that have been a part of either cast, crew, or just even helping as historical advisors. It's kind of just like opened up this can of curiosity for them to ask their own family and find out their own family story and the history of who was that person in my family line that immigrated to America? What
Right.
did that look like? What did that journey look like for them? And so it's been really like, for me personally, and I know for other people that have shared with me, it's just been like really healing in a way and connecting because you're connecting to, like, I'm connecting to like my great grandparents' journey, and I never even got to meet my great grandparents. So it feels very like full circle healing, connecting, and I hope that the audience can also resonate with that when they see the film.
Oh, absolutely. That's wonderful that you touch on that. And the one word that sticks out in my mind as you say that, it actually leads me into my next question too. And that's, inspiring. Like all of these people, all of that history, your project is inspiring these people to look into their own history. So, the people you're working with are inspiring you with the project. So I guess my question is, who is someone that inspires you that's not part of this whole process as a filmmaker or a family member, just out there in the world? Who's somebody that's inspiration for you?
It's hard. I would say that like my parents are my inspiration. And I know
Mhm.
you said not a family member, but that would be, I mean, they're like top of mind. My mom is a female minority. She's,
Mhm.
Japanese American, but she's a business entrepreneur. So she started Fina Flowers before I was even born.
Oh,
And
wow.
she kind of carved her own path where she chased after her dream, which was owning a flower shop. And she's really grown it. I mean, in the Seattle area, it's one of the top flower shops in our state. So, like, when I say that my mom owns Fina Flowers, people are like, your mom is Fina Flowers? I love her flowers. Because she does a lot of just like high-end corporate and also
Oh,
private,
okay.
flowers for people and parties and weddings. And just watching her do that, which was, and my dad is, he was an electrical engineer for Boeing. So just seeing just the two of them really do what they love and have a family and make it work and be able to each chase their dreams, but also support each other and support me and my brother growing up. That's been my inspiration, really. And uh, there's like this kind of like this overarching like theme in Asian families where there's this pressure to be like a doctor or a lawyer or an
Yeah.
engineer, something like that. And I actually was a dental hygienist at one point.
Really?
And when I pivoted into the film industry as an actor, my parents were right there supporting me, being like, hey, you need to chase after, do what you love to do, and it will never feel like work. So I don't think without their support and without that encouragement, it would be really hard to chase after, anything in the film industry because as
Right.
we know, it's so volatile up and down. But I've always had their support. And even in making this film, they're also co-executive producers along with my Aunt Teresa Yagi. And they've just not only believed in the vision enough to pour money into it, but they were extras on set doing catering. They were watching our boys so we could make this movie. Like they're just like, I'm so proud of you, so it's hard not to choose them as like my greatest inspiration
Right.
because they've always just been right there next to me, being my biggest cheerleader, and now me and my husband and our family's biggest cheerleader. So
Wow, that's amazing. Now, I know you've redirected my question back to your family, but I don't think there could have been a more perfect answer. So thank you for that. I'll totally accept that as the answer. So no worries. Now, as the movie I Am American moves forward, and tell me about how that process has shifted into post-production and also with the fundraising efforts, because I know that's still an ongoing process too as well.
Yeah, thank you for, I don't know who's going to be watching this, but thank you for all of our donors. Being an indie filmmaker, we can't make these films without the support of our community and the donors and the people that believe in the story and the project. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you to our fiscal sponsor, Northwest Film Forum. I've been told that usually the process of finding a fiscal sponsorship takes a long time. And when we were going into production, I realized that our biggest hurdle was that we weren't fiscally sponsored. So we had people that wanted to donate, a significant amount of money of theirs, but because it wasn't a tax deductible write-off, they were like, or it had to go to a nonprofit. So I reached out to the Northwest Film Forum and they literally approved it in like 2 days, which
Wow,
is wild.
that is
Because of
incredible.
them, it just opened up the doors for people to donate and get a tax deductible write-off.
Sure.
So if this is a story that you would like to help us tell, we are fiscally sponsored by the Northwest Film Forum, which means that your donation is a tax deductible write-off. You can find the info on our website and make sure you put in I am American if you're sending a check or doing anything so it goes to our project. But we greatly appreciate your support. Right now, we are in post-production. So I'm actually down in Los Angeles right now, working, and we are working with Company 3 and Eric Ventura, who is our
Wow.
colorist. They are one of, if not the top coloring company in the world. So they just colored Spider-Man. They did
Hmm.
Avatar: Last Airbender. They did Shogun. Um, if you go on their IMDb, so many shows that you've seen and movies that you've seen, they've colored. And so we feel insanely grateful that they're taking on our small little indie project to help us tell this story and
Oh
preserve
yeah.
this story. So we are in the greatest hands down here. So yeah, and then I go back up to Seattle and I'm working with Brian Sloss, who is doing our post sound mixing. So he's doing all of the final sound. I'm working with Masaki out of Chicago, who's doing sound design. We have our composer, Miyu who is out of New York City, who worked on Rachel Maddow's Burn Order podcast.
Okay.
And so she's doing all the score for our film.
Really?
Just it, yeah, I mean, the amount of talent on the cast and crew side on this project, I'm like moved to tears like every day,
Right.
thanking God for bringing these people onto our project because it's just, yeah, incredible. I'm down here with my cinematographer, Chris Kosier, who is just insanely talented. He elevated this film beyond what it could have been. And yeah, thanks to Tyler Maeno from Via Creatives. He's in Seattle, has a production company, Via Creatives. He let us use his Arri Alexa 35 for this film, which is the top camera in the
Oh
industry.
wow.
And we would have never have been able to afford it. And our picture looks so, so good because of Tyler's generosity to this project. So yeah, it's just been, my I could just go on and name all these people
Oh
like
yeah.
my co-producer Katrina Hess. She's Filipino American. She brought on just so much onto our project in both costume designing. Like when you see these costumes, it's gonna blow the audience's mind. She did such an incredible job just like spearheading the costume department and helping me to co-produce when I was like, "Oh, how do we make this period piece and all the moving pieces and all that?" She's like, "I got you. This is like I love producing." So grateful for her. My makeup artist, Nancy Havasta, she's worked on so many big television and movie shows and came on our film project. She's been like a number one supporter of us. She's head of hair and makeup. So, I mean, I could just go on and on with our incredible cast and crew from the Seattle area. There's so much talent in Seattle. So, if anyone's watching this and is even, dabbling and wanting to film in Seattle, yes, you should. You should definitely bring your film project to Seattle. It is a great area to film, and there is so much talent in the area. Yeah.
Yeah, and just the generosity involved with, I think it really points to the fact that you're doing something important and you're doing something that's meant to be done. The fact that everybody is just willing to jump in on this. And you mentioned all of these names and these companies that have these IMDb pages that are just impressive. And I want to take a look at the IMDb page for your film, because that would just be like a who's who as well. So no, thank you for diving into that a little bit. That's really amazing, and it really points to, like I said, that you're absolutely on the right path. Now, we're getting kind of close to wrapping things up here, and one thing I want to ask you is, if you step back and think about everything you've experienced so far, this year, and this, making this film, what's the first thing that comes to mind that gives you that feeling of gratitude?
Oh, I feel like I would say community.
Yeah.
It's been it's been just incredible to see the community support.
Hmm.
So we had over 60 descendants of family members that were incarcerated.
Wow.
And we filmed during like a shocking heat wave going through
Yep.
Seattle in June, which is, our weather not does not get hot,
Sure.
but it was hot. We were wearing these, wool long coats. We had kids. We had like an 18-month-old on set. We had elderly people on set, and just so many extras, and cast and crew, and it was just a massive amount of people. It's so hot, it's so warm. We're filming in a train, so it's like enclosed, and just in these locations that get really warm. And I would check in with just everybody and just be like, hey, if you need to leave, I see you have kids here. Like, we can put you in an area where we can wrap you out so you guys can get going because I know it's warm. They're like, no, we are here for your story. Whatever you need for this story, we're
Wow.
here for.
Yeah.
And I literally started crying on set too because
No, that's
that
totally
is
understandable.
that's a sentiment of the community.
Sure.
We have our cast, our crew. I mean, these are top industry professionals that
Mhm.
are working on such an indie micro budget because we wanted to tell the story. It was urgent to get it told while survivors were still alive.
Right.
And people generously donated so much of just their time, their skill, their talent to this project so that we could preserve this piece of American history. Um, like King 5, Cairo News Radio, um, Fox 13, Seattle, Northwest Asian Weekly magazine, there's just so many people that are covering, like the upper left corner, um, and the Seattle Economic Group, the Seattle Film Summit, like all
Mm.
these. I'm telling you, the support from the community has been beyond incredible, and the press around the film, the support around the film, all of our location directors. It's just floored me, the
Right.
community that has been coming behind this film, and outside of the Seattle area, JACL National, which is the Japanese American Citizen League, they sent it out to all 12,000 of their members.
Oh,
And
wow.
I have people from North Carolina, from Colorado, people all across the nation that are emailing me, reaching out, and just offering so much support and encouragement for this film. And I'm like, how? You know, so um so yeah, when I think about this film, the thing that I am most grateful for is the community that is coming behind this film project and really helping us tell this piece of American history and preserve this piece of history that was lived by 120,000 Nikkei families that
Mm.
suffered through this trauma. And um, yeah, it's been a film for the community and it's brought by the community. So I am so excited to be able to take this film and take it across the nation and allow people, anyone who wants to host a screening in their city, if they want to organize that, I would gladly take this film and allow them to screen this film so that anyone who wants to see this story is able to see it. That's why we made it. We made it for the community. So,
Wow.
and there's there's so much pressure there that, so I say no pressure, but I'm like, I have so much pressure because there's
Right.
been so much press, so much support, so much encouragement. The film looks phenomenal, but I'm just like, I just hope that everyone really likes it. And yeah, I hope that yeah, we do this story justice. And if you have supported this film in any way, I'm sure I've probably left out, hundreds, if not more names.
Sure.
But thank you, thank you, thank you for your support. Yeah, like I said, being an indie filmmaker, you can't make these films without a community that supports it.
Right.
And that also includes in post once it's out in the world. So, thank you to our audience that is going to watch the film, that is excited to watch this film because honestly, you can't make these films without an audience. So,
Right.
yeah, I really appreciate everyone. Like, we have people that were donating their time as extras on set, like lots of like family members, close family friends, and community members that really have shared this with their greater families far and wide. So I feel like that's why there's like this trickle effect of just people really hyped up about this film because you take one person that was on set that shares it with their 100 family and friends members, and then they share it, and then they share it. So it's been just like, it's just been so incredible yeah, to make this film. I call it our film because I feel like it's become just like the community's film. We're all a part of making it, and we're all a part of making sure that it's told. Hollywood hasn't really told this story ever
Right.
from immigration to incarceration. So, um, to everybody out there that's telling these stories, whether it's through podcasts, books, art, filmmaking, to tell this piece of history is so, so important. So, the work that not just I'm doing, but everyone that's out there trying to preserve this piece of history, it is just so important. We have to be willing to tell the history in order to make sure that it stays alive and is preserved and passed on to the next generation. So, um, yeah, I feel incredibly grateful for this community. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you so much. I think I don't know if I could have asked for a better answer to that question because community, I think, is really the definition of what you're going for. And I think eventually every person who gets to watch the film is going to be added to that, be a piece of that community as well. But, Kelsey, just thank you so much. I'm grateful that we've have someone that, so talented and passionate here in Seattle working on a project like this and being able to bring all these people and all of this stuff together. And I can already tell that the film is it's going to be something special, because of the care, the authenticity, everything that you've talked about that you're pouring into it. I have no doubts that it's going to be, whatever success means or means to you. I have every confidence that it's going to be that. So, thank you for taking the time to speak with me about the film, and I wish you nothing but the best with the movie and just with everything else that you're going to have in your future as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to share about I Am American. Yeah, I feel like it's just anytime you get to share about your film, and I hope anyone watching is able to also share with their community because it just really helps to share about the film and to make sure that, there's an audience that's going to see it and support it. So I really appreciate you having me on your podcast and
Yeah.
giving me the opportunity. And I do hope to expand the film. So this is like part one,
Ah,
and I'm
okay.
hoping to expand it into part two and part three,
Nice.
possibly part four. So we would be pulled into, I didn't really share about this, but I wrote in that their grown up Japanese American son, the family's Japanese American son, he enlists and serves in the United States Army. So that was in my own family story. My great grandmother had three sons that were serving in the United States Army, while her and my great grandfather and their other children that weren't of age were all in concentration camps.
Wow.
So I hope to show that juxtaposition of just um, that there's all of these Japanese American men willing to die and sacrificed their life in a war for other people's freedoms. Meanwhile, their family's own freedom is now taken away from them and they're held in concentration camps.
Mm.
So I feel like that's a very powerful juxtaposition to shine a light on. And
Yeah.
then also the aftermath of these families after they got out of these concentration camps, after the men came back from war and they go back to their homes, they have no homes, they have no land. It's all been taken from them, bought pennies from the dollar. There's just so much that was lost,
Mm.
and then that rebuilding process for these families. So I really hope to expand into these other acts of what
Sure.
happens after the family first gets incarcerated. And yeah, I hope to continue on, preserving this legacy of these lived experiences for the Nikkei families that lived through it.
Yeah.
So
No,
thank you,
that's
Mark.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're welcome and thank you. And thanks for opening that up as well. I think there's so many different stories, so many different directions you could go. I think for I Am American, this is, it's really just the beginning. And unfortunately, on the other side of that, we're at the end of our interview. So,
Yeah,
so I think we'll have to wrap it up there. But I could talk to you about this forever. Maybe we'll do a part two at some point. But I'd
yeah.
love to follow up with you again down the road somewhere. But again, thank you, Kelsi, for being here. And once again, my name is Mark. This is Kelsi Umeko, director of I Am American, and you are watching the Changing Directions interview series. Now, to learn more about I Am American, please visit ckfilmspro.com, which is linked below in the description. The site will also lead you to Kelsi's GoFundMe page, as well as the Northwest Film Forum information on how the different ways you can support the film, including the tax-deductible option through Northwest Film Forum. And also, please remember to subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, and leave a comment below. We'd love to hear what you thought of this interview. But thank you so much for watching. Take care, and we'll see you next time.